Here we go with week 3 of lockdown flexibility. This week what we're going to do is largely the same as what we did last week. However, we are going to try and introduce a few different techniques that you can intersperse into each of those stretches as you see fit. So what we want to try and do is we're going to try and use breathing steadily as we have done in quite a few of them already. But by breathing deeply, but keeping that breath under control, you will find that you can actually reassure your brain, reassure your body that you are comfortable in that position, that you've got that position, and you can actually go beyond that position. Another one we can do as well is actually moving our head in when we're in the deeper parts of the stretch. The simple action of turning your head from side to side, up and down, and tilt from right to left. You will actually be giving some feedback to your inner ear, which again gets the body more familiar with those positions and can actually just increase the amount of feedback that's coming back into the system, and means that your body gets more comfortable towards the ends of range, which is what we are ultimately trying to do. As well as that is to add in reaches in different directions. Okay, so we can add in reaches into these different stretches and mobilisations, and that will change how they feel and can make them more effective as we go. We did a little bit of that last week. We're just going to expand on that as we go this week. So what you need for today is a mat. You may need a small weight, which I've got right here in front of me. You will need a towel or a band. I'm going to use a band, and you will also need another towel or a block of some description that you can use to pop underneath your hips. So let's get going. We're actually going to start off with our single leg lower down. So I'm going to use this block, prop that just underneath my hips. That allows me to keep that in position. I'm going to use that band around my foot, like I did last week. We're not going to go for any real extended time. This time all I'm going to do is I'm going to throw in a few pauses with that single leg lower down. So I'm in that stretch position. I'm trying to stay pretty relaxed as much as I can. I'm feeling that stretch through my hamstring, through my hip. This one's pretty much the same as it was last week. We're not making any huge changes. I'm just trying to use my breath in that position, trying to hold those deeper positions. And get comfortable in those positions. I'm just checking my timer. About another 30 seconds or so left. Now the 3 techniques I talked about, the breathing. Now hopefully the breathing should be used in every single exercise. We've talked about that through all 6 sessions so far. The nods, they're new, the moving the head, and the reaches we touched on last week. There we go, let's do the same thing on the other side. We touched on the reaches last week. We're just going to expand on that now. This is what we want to look at. Again, full minute and a half on each leg. Single leg lower down. Adding in a few pauses here or there. Just as a reminder for anybody that hasn't done session 1 for a little while, the key thing on this move here, we keep our lower back pressed in tight to the floor throughout. That's the key driver in this move. We're not allowing that lower back to arch off the floor. So that change in that position comes from the hip, comes from the hamstring. It doesn't come from us arching that lower back, allowing it to come off the floor. So again, you may be feeling stiff. You may have been doing some of the online classes. That's fine, that's great. That may mean that you feel stretching is a good way to relieve some of that DOMS. Now, it won't actually speed that up by an awful lot. We're going to do Jefferson curls next. So again, I'm tucking that chin in, breathing steadily throughout, really reaching down towards the floor. When you reach that bottom position, just take a few breaths in that position. Now, if you're stretching to cure DOMS, what you need to do, rather than just stretch, is actually improve blood flow to the relevant muscles. So go for a walk, go for a cycle, spend some time, use the hamstrings and glutes to pull back up. Again, I spend a bit of extra time in that bottom position, just trying to breathe into it, allowing myself to hang down to relax. This time we're going to start to use those nods. I'm just going to turn the head. I'm not going to force the movement because my neck isn't changing that move. All I'm looking to do is just give some feedback to my brain. My body kind of gets more familiar with some of these positions. The more familiar your body gets, the easier it is for you to get into these positions, to maintain these positions. And that's what's going to improve your flexibility. Another 45 seconds. So again, spend about 2 minutes on some of these. If you want to, you can add in the extra weight. So I'm not going to pause on that one. I'll do a rep with the added weight. You may be all ready to reach the floor. If you can reach the floor, if you've got a step or a box you can go on, use that. And actually try and reach beyond the box. You can see there, I have no need to be on a box yet. But again, if you are a little bit more flexible and you are able to reach the floor, you want to go beyond that. We're still trying to improve. And draw hamstrings back up. Good. So from there we're coming into those single leg hamstring pulses. So we'll go through a few basic ones like we did before. So one leg straight in front. We'll push the chest forward and then squeeze, let's push the hips forward to bring that move back to vertical. So again, as I push the hips back, drive forward, push the hips back, drive forward. Now, we're going to add in some of those reaches. So as soon as we reach with the arms, that affects the shoulders, and then that carries down through the spine and will affect the hips. So if I reach in the general direction of the camera, it pushes my hips out to one side, changes that stretch slightly. Same if I reach towards the wall, it changes that stretch. Those reaches will change how that stretch feels. Have a play. Reach in a few different directions. Which ones are most effective for you? Again, getting comfortable in unfamiliar positions. We are making the unfamiliar more familiar. Now, there is a general rule of thumb. If it feels bad, it's bad. So if anything doesn't feel quite right, It's not a case of no pain, no gain. Probably my least favourite fitness slogan. One more stretch down, because I quite like that one where I turn in slightly. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. Again, start off with a couple of basic ones. You said as I lean forward, I'm keeping my chest up, I'm not allowing my back to round. I'm making sure my hamstring gets stretched. Then I'm squeezing, bum, pushing the hips forward. I feel that stretch across the opposite hip flexor. Now I'm going to start to add a few of those reaches. So still reaching towards the wall. And reaching towards the camera. That one's a bit stiffer on that side. For me anyway. Again, that push forward, back, and again. Try and breathe steadily throughout. Even adding in the occasional stretch, an occasional hold. Try and get comfortable with being uncomfortable. But remember, if it doesn't feel right, probably isn't right. We need to stick with what is right, what feels good. We're not trying to force ourselves into unnatural positions. We're just trying to improve our current range of motion. So coming towards the end of that one, throwing in one more, we're leaning towards the wall. So again, like I said, I quite like that one. We're going to stand up. We're going to come into that standing quad stretch. So again, like we did last week, one hand on the wall for balance. I think I might have knocked one of those pictures off balance last week and not fixed it. So, knees together, push the hips forward, ribs down. So I'm getting that stretch down through the quad. Again, if your balance is good enough, throw in a few reaches. So again, it'll change how that stretch feels. Just that little twist each time. A bit close to the wall to reach that way. Even keeping ribs down but reaching overhead. Increase that intensity. It'll improve your balance. Won't necessarily improve this hip flexibility, but you can actually work on your balance by changing that head position. You can see my ankle, my foot going into overdrive to try and keep me from falling over as I do this one. But each one, each one gives me a bit of feedback, a bit of visual feedback, and helps me improve that balance. Now you might prefer the sofa stretch, or even the more intense wall stretch that we did last week. That's fine. Do one of those, but again, just incorporate some of those head turns, some of those reaches in different directions. See how they feel. Again, just good grip. Yeah. I've done it yet again. Or I've got my timer behind me. Let's have a look. Okay. So I know where I'm at. Again, I'm going to try reaches in different directions and still soft standing leg, ribs down, pushing the hips forward. Still breathing steadily throughout. We're trying to change visual feedback, affecting that inner ear. Get used to that. Throwing the balance off, allowing the brain and the body to work together to correct it, to maintain that balance. Now if you can't do the balance, that's fine, don't worry about that one. Go into the sofa stretch, go into the floor, the wall stretch, the more intense one where you have your shin and your foot up the wall. Use the ones that are effective for you. Time was coming close to it. Another 10-15 seconds. But again, I'm playing about with those positions. It is now about exploring each of those positions. So we're already onto our calf raises 3 ways. So again, we'll go for roughly 30 seconds of each one. So again, together, feet both facing forward, straight on. I can reach out in front, reach to one side, I can reach to the other, and that will change how that feels throughout. Again, much like last week, keeping it nice and controlled. There's roughly 30 seconds, so I'm going to go toes out. And again, press up. I'm going to try and do that reach forward thing. I'll show you that from that side. So I've got toes out, trying to reach forward but keep the balance. Back up. Now remember, this isn't a calf raise to build your calves. This is to get used to working different ranges, to working in different body positions. There's 30 seconds. I'm going to go toes in, Tommy Pickle style, Rugrat style. Again, back into that calf raise. This one's a bit more difficult. The reach, much more difficult. I can't get very far at all. That might be one for me to work on. Makes that significantly more difficult. Let's try and go for a slightly easier one, just while we do this. Now you can go into the standing calf stretch, or you can do the 45-degree calf stretch. Again, it doesn't matter. I'm going to go for the standing one. So 1 foot forward, 1 foot back, and I'm driving my hips forward. So again, ribs down, hips pushed forward, creating that stretch. Trying to breathe into it as much as I can. I'm going to try a few different reaches. Again, the hands reach, the shoulders follow. That affects the hips. The hips then affect the legs. That changes just how that stretch will feel. So changing the line of that stretch. Now you'll notice here, I'm not actually coming back. I'm just reaching out at that end of range. Different points of it are more tight than others. Again, we're going to do the same thing. Take some of the pressure off. This time, instead of dropping the hips forward, I'm going to drop the knee towards the floor. Still trying to keep that left foot flat on the floor. Again, just changing that position, that reach. So from there, that doesn't feel, the reaches don't seem to, at least for me, don't seem to have as much of an effect. Or at least that's probably the most effective position for me. So I'm going to stick in it. Again, if you want to play about with that position, play about with that position. That is roughly about right. So we're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. So the first one, legs straight, driving the hips forward, pushing back heel into the floor, trying to create that stretch, that tension through the calf. Again, I'm going to play with those different reaches. Again, I'm going to reach out front, I'm going to reach towards the wall, reach towards the camera. And for me, definitely, the reach forward and the reach towards the camera, or generally in that kind of direction, are probably the most effective positions. So I'm just going to play with those myself. So explore your own flexibility. How far can you comfortably get to? How far can you control your breathing? Again, taking the pressure off there. Going to do the same side, but this time dropping the knee towards the floor, so dropping it down, keeping my right foot flat on the floor this time. Again, we're not built symmetrical, so I'm just still going to try some of those reaches in different directions. That one there is quite tight there, so that one. So because I'm not symmetrical, that one feels a little bit more towards the end of range for me, so I'm just going to play with that one a little bit. Last couple of seconds anyway. If you did that all the way through, just with me, well done. If you've been following all 7 sessions, including this one so far, well done. That is going to be the theme of this week and next week. It's kind of taking things from the basic stretches that we worked on week 1. We started to develop them a little bit week 2. Now we're going to really start to explore and get creative with sort of weeks 3 and weeks 4. So hopefully you guys are enjoying that so far. If you are enjoying it, get a comment in below, or chat to me on Facebook, on Instagram. Other than that, guys, that is, yeah, I've covered everything I wanted to talk about. So that is Neil signing off.